This is reposted.
Well, about a year ago, friend of the show, Kristen Yarborough, sent us a
Oh,
quote. And on the 1 year anniversary, she sent
love
us
Kristen.
another quote. This
Oh.
one is from the ancient Greek author, often described as the father of tragedy,
Oh.
Aeschylus. He said, "He who learns must suffer, and even in our sleep, pain that cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart. And in our own despair, against our will, comes wisdom to us by the awful grace of God." I say so many versions of this. I think you might have too, but like there's no self growth without going through pain. And I kind of like this idea that um, even if you don't want to get over something, I mean, time heals everything. And it's the idea that while you're sleeping, your soul is being healed within. So I think this is interesting. And I just like the idea that no matter what happens, things are going to get better.
I want someone to give this as like a wedding toast, like old school, just like, crickets afterwards. He who learns must suffer. And your wedding, your marriage, going to suffer a lot, everybody. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with life is, right, you can't really learn something unless you have discomfort, right? Nobody, no human being goes like, you know what, my life is great. I think I'm going to change something. The only way to learn something is if you're discomfort. And lots of times pain, tragedy, all of that is when we learn the most. So yeah, of course, you got to have badness to have goodness.
Yeah, I think people always like the idea that like it's the Matrix where you plug it in and you learn a language. Like you don't say, I'm going to learn the piano and sit down and play Rachmaninoff. It's like you learn where middle C is, and then you struggle and you try to read, and it becomes muscle memory. I found this summary of this quote. It says, make your lifelong learning journey more akin to long distance endurance event than suffering a sprint, which is like, all right, well, everything I'm going to do is just going to be a grind. It's like, I don't know, have you ever run more than a 5K?
Yep.
Yeah, it's just like I've the farthest I've ever done is a half marathon. It's just like, all right, I don't really have a choice. I'm going to keep going, and you just keep going, and that's kind of how learning is. And I guess if you quit or you decide you don't want to do it anymore, you're just gonna be a crappy person.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, once again, to achieve anything, you have to have some commitment. If you want to learn a language or you want to learn the piano, like me right now, would be time away from my family or whatever it is. If you want to learn something, if you have to put the time into it. The funny word for this, for me, in this one is the word awful. It comes wisdom to us by the awful grace of God, which I kind of did a little bit of research, and they say awful really doesn't mean like awful in the sense we think of. It means sort of just beyond our understanding. And it's not really God, because Isaac or whatever his name was way before Jesus and the whole thing. It was just this idea of that learning is way beyond our understanding. And if we want to, we have to like kind of give it away.
That's interesting. I like that is beyond our learning. One extreme example I can think of it. I was in a fraternity in college, and
Yes.
during what they call Hell Week, there was this thing that they made us try to memorize, and we were sleep deprived, and we just like no one could get it right. It was the what time is it? And sir, due to unfortunate, unforeseen circumstances beyond my control, the inner workings and hidden mechanisms of my chronometer are no longer available. The time is 1 tick, 2 seconds, 3 minutes beyond the hour of whatever. We could not get that. And after we became members of the fraternity, we went to sleep. I slept for 12 hours. Every single person that went through Hell Week, you wake up and you never forget that. And so it's like somehow that thing is just embedded in me. And it's by the awful grace of God, I suppose.
Hell weeks are interesting with fraternities, right? Because there's no way you can succeed. Like, there's a part of you thinks like, if we just memorize this line, they're going to stop yelling at us. But the whole point is they're not. There's nothing you can do. They're setting you up to fail, and they want you to fail.
Mhm.
And so then how, like in that vein, how in your life, when we do have difficult moments, do you say like, I want to learn from this, right? Or your parents died, or your kid dies, or something horrible happens to you in life. How then do you say like, I want to learn from this moment right now?
Yeah, it's like your natural instinct is to get in the fetal position or run
Yeah.
away, and it's like you need to plant your feet and face the storm head on, or whatever it is. Yeah, I just
Because our human concept is to try and make things as easy as possible. Like our brains are wired, once again, on Serengeti to not get eaten by the tiger. So let's stay in the cave. Let's make things safe. But as we've been talking about, the only way to learn anything is to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. I think one of the most common things that you hear happens to people, this was never me, but a kid steals a pack of gum from the grocery store, and the parent is like, "Oh, where'd you get that?" And they make them go back to the store manager and say, "Hey, I stole that." Like every single person I know that's ever happened to, like, remembers that very well, and that's like an uncomfortable conversation you have to have. But theoretically, you would learn something from it. It's definitely memorable.
Yeah. And this quote too kind of brings up like my family, we live in San Francisco, and there's really nothing easy about living in San Francisco. I mean, you walk out your house, there's homelessness, there's trash, people doing drugs. I mean, I'm raising my 3 kids here, but every time you walk out the door, you're reminded of all of these things. Like it's easy to not have homelessness in the suburbs because that's not where homeless people go. But so you can sort of block out that there is homelessness or all the other problems that come in the urban environment. So it's funny. I don't necessarily think it's for everybody, but we're always reminded that life is hard in the urban elements. And by the way, when we get a parking spot, when we go to the Walnut Creeks of the world, we're like, ooh, parking's so nice to get. Parking lots, what a great idea.
Parking lots feel good. I mean, yeah, your kids will go on at some point in their life to live somewhere different, maybe, or just be in a different point in their life. And like this says, against their own will, they're going to have wisdom on street smarts living in an urban area. And the same goes for if you grow up on a dairy farm, like against your will, you have it built into you, the grit or whatever, to get up at 4 a.m. to milk the cows. That's something your kids don't have. So I like this idea that no matter how you live your life against your will, and you're gonna gain wisdom on something. Even if you're not trying to learn, you're going to learn something.
I never heard this quote before. I really like it. And then I was reading a little bit. In 1968, then Senator Robert Kennedy used this quote on the night of the assassination of Martin Luther King. He read this quote and said, and sort of used that as the connection. I was like, wow, painful, powerful.
Yeah. The Kristen, when she shared this, she said, well, go cry your eyes out now that I've shared this with you.
Thank you.
Well, if you're listening to this show and you're crying, pull over. You can you can call us, or give us a call. Pick up your phone, call me, talk on the phone, or call Larry. This is Greek Posted. I'm Andrew for the Greek Tragedy, saying thanks for stopping by.